How are we doing? This is Martin from Gardens for Life. So I'm finally going to give you the tour of the pizza garden. So this little pizza garden of ours is actually about the size of an average allotment plot in Ireland or the UK, which is about 10 by 10 meters, and probably about 60% of it is growing area and the other 40% is paths. But you do need to make sure that it is kept very practical and very easy to access each of the beds, so that you can actually walk out there and just basically harvest your vegetables just before cooking, ideally, because once you harvest them fresh, the vitamins and the flavors actually stay intact, and you'll have a much healthier and a much more flavoursome meal. And of course, make sure that your garden is not too far from the kitchen as well. So as some of you might have seen, we have a 3-part series of how we actually set up this garden, and we have the first volume would be about ground preparation and how we actually dealt with the weeds. We could have actually smothered them completely using plastic, but we also used our chickens. The second volume was about putting down the cardboard and the compost and all the details with those. And the third volume was simply just making the paths from wood chips and planting it. So I'm going to show you actually now. This garden is only 2 months after being planted now. So this is actually mid-August, and we planted it, we just finished planting it actually mid-June. Oh, just finally, when I get around to actually giving you guys a tour, it's starting to drizzle. Well, this is Ireland, it's normal. We'll give you a tour here. So this is actually yacon, which is a tall tuberous plant, and it also has a flower in the very top, which is yellow and daisy-like, kind of like a giant daisy. We also planted some salad on the side here. These were actually planted in as seedlings. So the garden itself actually is comprised of 12 slices of about equal proportion, as you will have seen from the aerial footage. And each slice actually has usually 2 or 3 vegetables or types of vegetables in them. We have some fennel here. It's actually bulb fennel, but we're going to leave it and use it just for leaves, mostly for medicinal purposes, to soothe the stomach. And these ones here are purple sprouting broccoli. And check out how tall they all got. It's just amazing, the rate of growth. This is actually an American elder tree, Florida elder. We do have the odd perennials in here too. Here's some potatoes that already have finished, and we'll be harvesting those shortly. We actually planted them as seedlings out of pots. Basically, they were chitted with roots and everything on them, so it didn't take them quite 3 months to mature. But once you chit them properly, I believe they can mature within 2 or even 2.5 months. These are ochas, which look very similar to clover, kind of like shamrocks, and they're actually a tuberous vegetable. And check out how big they are. The stems down here. We'll be expecting quite a big harvest of those, thankfully, because actually this will be the first year we've been growing them for 3 years, and for the first time we'll have enough to eat, not just to sell as seed vegetable. These are actually apios. We have been eating them, all of these tubers, but we will have plenty now this year. So these are actually apios. That's a ground nut, it's also known as. Here, we have a friend has joined us. Sheldon is taking care of the garden, making sure that nobody eats our vegetables. Here's some beetroots. Some of them have grown fairly substantial already, but they're only in for 2 months now, and they're actually mixed color ones. And this is it's just a trellis we made out of 3 old hazel sticks with a wire hanging down from the middle and a rock. And that rock actually holds the structure down, and the wind doesn't blow it away. And the Apios tubers can actually climb up the structure. Although I think we're not going to bother growing Apios outdoors anymore. I think we're better off to grow it indoors in the greenhouse. I think we'll have much better yields. For some reason they just prefer the heat and the dryness. And for those of you who don't know Apios, it's actually the one I call the sausage link tuber. And I'll just show you a quick clip of one here that we had from actually last January. Here's some kale that we planted in this bed here. There's some dinosaur kale, or black Tuscany or Nero. There's 3 names for it. And it's doing phenomenally well. We've actually never had too much success with that one. We've been growing kale for years. Didn't really bother with cabbage much in the last few years, because kale is better. And you don't have to wait for the head to form. You simply pick away at the leaves. This is the red Russian kale. And with some dahlia in the middle of it. You can see it's starting to flower here. Those have actually edible tubers. All dahlia are actually edible, the tubers. And there are some varieties that taste better than others. Some of these we planted. This is actually Portuguese kale. We planted as a cutting. Here you can see in amongst the onions. You can see the cutting. And it actually grew into quite a big plant already, which is awesome. So we're going to have some more Portuguese kale too. These are the onions, mostly Red Baron and Stuttgarter Riesen, or Stuttgarter Giants. You can see it's quite a forest of scallions we have now. Great to have them. And now I'll just bring you into the middle here. This is where Sheldon the cat takes care of everything. Here we have another variety of oca actually in the middle here, just on the other side of the potatoes. And beside the yacon tubers here, we have some ullucus, which have really strange leaves. It's kind of like rubber, it feels like, especially when they're dry actually. They're a little bit damp now from the drizzling rain. And you can see here the stems are quite substantial too. So each of these plants will hopefully give us some tubers, and we can propagate them from there. It's kind of similar to a potato, but it's just another species of plant, and it's supposed to be pretty good. Here's a mixed salad. We like planting our salad mixes, and some celery growing on that side there, and some chocolate mint right in the middle of it. And I know some of you will think, well, chocolate mint is going to spread everywhere in your garden. Well, we don't mind actually, because it's a really rare one, and we want to actually let it spread, and we can take up the roots then, or the rhizomes, and multiply it from there. And actually in the background here you can see just here beyond Schnapper the cat there is some Moroccan mint, which has actually taken over that spot, which we're really happy about, among the oregano plants as well, flowering there in pink. Here's some cauliflowers, which we have not grown successfully ever before. We never actually tried to grow cauliflowers, to be honest. And yeah, hopefully we'll do well. We're not very good at growing vegetables, but we're learning. And if any of you have any suggestions, please let us know. We're very open to help. This is Canarian potatoes. Let me see if you want to see one. Let's see, can we find one? Canarian potatoes. They look like they've already finished growing. They have a real deep purple colour. Let me see, can I find a bigger one than that? I must show you guys the potatoes from the other garden, the wall garden. They're growing huge now at this stage. They're like bigger than the size of my hand. But these ones here, they didn't do that well, as you can see. But nevertheless, we're going to propagate them and grow them one more year next year. And I'm sure there is more underneath these. I won't actually dig them up now by hand. So here we have some courgettes. as many of you will be familiar with. And of course, there's one that got away. Oh no, it got too big. Well, we'll be eating that one shortly. We're actually going to end up with a few too many, which means that the neighbours will actually get some of those. We love throwing extra surplus vegetables at the neighbours, in a friendly way, of course, so that they can eat them. And here's some more ullucus. It's a different variety actually. I'd say that must be the red one because of the colour of the stems. And here's some leeks. The leeks are very slow to grow. I think leeks take about 8 months or 7 months to grow. I'm not sure. If anyone knows, let me know. I haven't looked it up. Oh, and here's some more courgettes, of course. We have 3 different varieties of courgettes here. And another variety of oca, which is doing really, really well. I think Paskov is our favourite variety of oca because it has really nice colour. Kind of a golden, kind of a patchy colour, like golden and orange. And look at the colours of the stems as well. It's quite an attractive vegetable, especially even as an ornamental in the garden actually. It's pretty nice, and it has these yellow flowers that come out fairly early in the year as well. And this will be only a couple of weeks now, and this will be full of yellow flowers. We have some up the road that were planted a bit earlier, and they've got a lot of flowers already. Here's another variety of yacon. So you can see, even what you can see here now, this is only, there is like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of the 12 slices, and we've already got a lot of different root crops in it actually. Here you can see this is a different variety. Yacon, that's the white one. It's actually my personal favourite. We expect to get maybe 2 or 3 kilos of tubers for eating out of each of these plants, and some growing tips as well, which we'll be offering on our shop soon, probably at the end of November. But we'll start the pre-sales for tubers early this year. In fact, we've never done pre-sales before because now there's actually a lot of people looking for these edible tubers, which are almost perennial. You don't really have to replant them if you don't want to, but with the ocas especially, they're a frost tender crop, and the yacons as well. We'll actually take them up in the winter and then plant them out into pots in the greenhouse first, and then we'll plant them out into the garden as seedlings. You can see here, that's what the stems of the ocas look like. This is the same variety. And here's some Egyptian walking onions, and I believe there was 1 or 2 here that might have had already a stalk actually go to seed. I don't see one here. Here's one. Yeah, let's get the camera to focus. Anyway, you get the idea. So the Egyptian walking onion simply it builds the seedlings, the seeds on top, the bulblets, and then it just tip layers. Here's some Waltham broccoli in the middle, which is head forming broccoli, which didn't go too well up the road actually where we have our other garden, and it didn't really form heads. It's more like a sprouting broccoli. Maybe we did something wrong, I'm not entirely sure. We just planted it as seedlings. Alright, we just ran out of battery. Got a new one there. This is actually a bed that is full of kohlrabi. For some reason, a lot of Irish people don't know kohlrabi, but it's a very good vegetable. It's kind of like a turnip, sort of similar, but it's really delicate actually in flavour. And you can chop it up and you can mash it. You can boil it and mash it, or you can actually cut it into chips and just fry it in the frying pan, or saute it, or you can bake it in the oven with a bit of oil, whichever way you like. But it's a really good vegetable. Here's another courgette plant. As you can see, it's flowering. Here's some oregano. There's actually just an oregano plant. It's perennial, and I highly recommend everybody to have one because it's a really good medicinal herb. Also really good for flavouring food as well when you're cooking. But it's antibacterial, and it's antimicrobial, and it really has a lot of beneficial effects on the body. Oregano is actually really easy. You just buy a plant and you keep it in a big pot near the kitchen, or you can plant it in the garden and it'll come back year after year. We don't even need to dry the leaves because in our garden we have so many microclimates that the oregano always has some fresh leaves to offer any time of the year. Almost pretty much 11 months of the year, and for 1 month in the winter then we basically just eat some of the drier leaves. And these are broad beans. Imperial long pod is actually the name. We couldn't get any aqua dulce this year because all the seeds were sold out due to the current events. And we're back at the onion patch, the onion slice I should call it. Talking of which, onion slice, we have a recipe on our website called onion slice, and it's actually really good. You should have a look at it. Here's a rosemary bush. That's perennial as well, so that'll grow bigger and hopefully fill in the space here eventually. But for the most part, this garden will be annuals anyway, and tubers. But it is highly productive, and I can only recommend any of you to start a little garden like that yourself. Right, I hope you enjoyed that tour of our little pizza garden. And it's getting a bit too drizzly out here now, so I'll finish this video and say thanks very much for watching. And if you liked the video, give it a thumbs up please, and we appreciate that very much. You can also follow our channel or subscribe to us, and certainly have a look at the 3-part series that we have on our channel on how we made this garden. And it's about an hour worth of material, but you can always skip part 1 because part 2 is much more interesting on how we put down the cardboard and the compost. And then of course there's part 3 where we made the paths and we planted all of these seedlings out into the garden. And there's also a compilation video which is much more action, which is only about 5 or 6 minutes long, and you'll see all of it in one go. Thanks a million. See you at the next one. Bye bye.